Hello and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series. If you're joining us for the very first time today and you start reading 2 chapters a day, you will cover the entire Bible in 20 months. And so the readings today are from Genesis 37 and 38. Genesis 37 records an horrific crime. In fact, if it was committed today, it would reach national news. It's a hate crime. It's child trafficking, it's slavery, it is attempted murder, and what makes it worse, it happens within a family. And the reason we're given is that Jacob had a number of sons, and he had a favorite, one that he spoiled, one that he gave special gifts to that he didn't give the others to, one that he didn't make work, one that he was about 17 years old, so maybe in matric now, who clearly had the favored place in the house, and it caused enmity with his brothers, stirred up jealousy and anger. Must have been a terrible, terrible environment to grow up. Anyway, he grows up with very little EQ. He has these dreams where he tells his brothers, "You're going to bow down to me." And he tells his mom and dad, "You're going to bow down to me." Must have been an arrogant little boy. But anyway, it didn't justify what they did to him. They chuck him into a well, and then they sell him into slavery, and he winds up in Egypt. You might be thinking, well, why does God allow that? And we know the end of the story, don't we? That God uses that time in Egypt to save the entire family and to set up a narrative, a storyline that brings in Jesus. Well, the next chapter isn't much better. It's not so much crime, but sin. It follows the line of one of the boys, Judah, who moves off to Canaanite territory, marries a Canaanite woman, and has 3 boys. Imagine naming your son what's your boy's name? I wonder whether he was drunk when he named him. Onan and Shelah. Anyway, the storyline is that marries a girl called Tamar, and he dies. Dad says to the second son, as was tradition in the day, marry her, but he abuses her. And so he also dies. Then dad says, "Listen to Tamar, go live with your dad's place until my youngest one, Shelah, is old enough to marry you." But he marries Shelah off to somebody else. So she gets hacked off. Must have been a lonely girl as well. Terrible growing up there, feeling abused like that. And so what she does is she pretends she's a prostitute, sits on the side of the road, and when Judah comes past one day, in disguise, offers him her prostitute services, and she falls pregnant. Judah hears that she is pregnant and insists that she's stoned to death. I mean, it's a bloodthirsty world that they were living in. And then she, in the twist of the story, says, "I've got the scarf, I've got the seal of the man who prostituted with me." And Judah sees that it was him, and twins are born. And as the twins are born, the one twin sticks out his hand, and the midwife ties a scarlet thread on it. But then the other son sort of pushes his way through the birth canal, and he comes out, and his name is Perez. And you think, what a strange story. And yet Perez is in the family line of Ruth, in the family line of David, and in the family line of Jesus. And so in both these horror stories, Joseph and Tamar, God uses the sin of man to work his purposes for the good. Because you might be asking yourself, well, is God orchestrating all this? No, it's not God's doing, it's sinful man. But God promises to use even the tragedies in our lives to weave a tapestry for our good, for those who love him. This is these chapters remind me of Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good for those who love him and have been called according to his purposes. All things. That means good things. That means bad things. I'm sitting on my mat here at home in front of my fireplace. This is not a very expensive tapestry, but in the front of this, it's a beautiful work of art. You can see that. Some thought has gone into it. But behind the tapestry, the backside, is something far less interesting to look at. It's a bunch of knots, and you really wouldn't put it upside down. And that's often been described as how God works the messes of our lives, the little good deeds we try to do, the tragedies of our lives, and he weaves them together for the good to present a totally different picture at the end of time. And when you're going through a tough time, like maybe some of these guys in the story did today, remember God is at work. Corrie ten Boom, the famous author who herself went through a huge tragedy, wrote this poem that reflects Romans 8:28. My life is but a weaving between my God and me. I cannot choose the colors that he weaveth steadily. Oft times he weaveth sorrow, and I in foolish pride forget he sees the upper and I the underside. Not till the loom is silent and the shuttle cease to fly will God unroll the canvas and reveal the reasons why. The dark threads are as needful in the weaver's skillful hand as the threads of gold and silver in the pattern he has planned. He knows, he loves, he cares. Nothing this truth can dim. He gives the very best to those who leave the choice to him. God bless you.